lot of people know this, but I'm experiencing a power cut still. I'm in an annex where the Wi-Fi might be a little bit flaky, so I've got some support today. Steph sharing her screen, which I'm very thankful for, and Gemma's recording for us, so just to make you all aware. Great, so welcome to the first show and tell of the public sector hubs. So my name's Hannah, for those that don't know. I'm the delivery manager on the project. We've also got Steph with us as well, who's the user researcher, who's kindly sharing her screen and will be presenting a little bit later on. So just to make you all aware, these will happen every 2 weeks. So they're a bit of an update from the project team, what we've been up to in the previous 2 weeks. And just a bit of a housekeeping rule, if we could make sure that we save any questions until the end. As we go through the presentation, some stuff might be answered. So if you could just hold your questions until the end, but you feel free to use the chat box, kind of bless you, Steph, as much as you possibly would like.
Right, so you eat that, but I couldn't get there.
No problem. Cool, if you would like to move on to the next slide, please, Steph. So I'm just going to cover a bit of the agenda off. So firstly, just going to cover what the Public Sector Hubs Discovery actually is, because this is the first one and some people on the call might not know what the project is yet. I'm going to move on to what we've done in the previous sprint, so the previous 2 week period. Steph's going to give us a bit of an update on what's been going on in the world of research. And then I'm going to finish off with what we've got planned next in the next 2 week period, and then any questions. Hopefully that sounds okay to everyone. I don't think we'll take the full 45 minutes just to make you all aware, but let's see how we get on. If you could go to the next slide, please, Steph. Great. So to start with, I just wanted to explain a little bit about what the Public Sector Hubs Discovery is and what they actually are. So for those on the call that don't know, the Public Sector Hubs are local remote working offices. So they allow people to work nearer to where they live for a variety of different reasons, for collaborations in community, and also provide a space for those who potentially cannot work from home or just prefer not to. It's worth mentioning that these are open to the private sector and also public sector. So a lot of people don't actually know that, so quite an interesting one. The offices are fantastic, but they need a tool to enable citizens of Wales to actually book a space within it. So if you think of kind of like hot desking, you need to be able to book a seat on that desk. And so at the moment, that process is a little bit convoluted. Different offices, different processes, but primarily it's done manually through email. So we are essentially building a booking tool for them. And as part of the discovery, we are collating the user needs and helping with procurement. So just going through that list there then. So like I say, we're working to understand the user needs for the booking tool from the perspective of both the citizens and also back office staff, so the hub providers. And at some point, the team will have to go out to market with a set of user needs and requirements contained within a procurement document. And the discovery will also look to support that. So the kind of two latter half points at the bottom there. And we'll be looking to understand what tools are already available in the online space. So as you can all imagine, since COVID, there's been a huge digital boom. So you would think that a lot of this stuff potentially is already out there. So it's a booking tool that might be fit for purpose. And as part of the discovery, we're going to be working with the user needs and in tandem with procurement support to kind of do a route to market analysis to see what's out there currently and pull that together into a kind of procurement specification as well. So that's kind of what encompasses the 8 week discovery. We are going into week 4 now, so we're well into it. And hopefully Steph will share a little bit more about what she's been up to in the research stuff later on, so you can kind of see what that 4 weeks has looked like so far. If you just want to move on to the next slide, Steph. So I'll just cover a little bit about what we've been up to. It says 2 week period, but I've kind of encompassed a couple of things from the 4 weeks as well, just because we haven't touched base with you all in the first show and tell. So lots of effort has gone into planning recruitment. And so those that are in agile and digital ways of working will know how painful recruitment is. So when I put planning for recruitment, there's a whole load of work that goes into that. And Steph's been doing that for the hub providers. So it includes developing the discussion guides, onboarding the recruitment agency that have been helping with the citizen user research interviews, recruitment, and also completing the kind of necessary admin. So lots of stuff around consent forms and GDPR, all that fun stuff. So a lot of work has gone into that in primarily the first 2 weeks. So in the most recent 2 weeks, we've conducted lots of interviews with the hub providers. So I say we, that's Steph, and she'll be providing the insights, very early insights from those interviews that she's conducted. We've also began conducting interviews with the citizens, so that's the second half, if you like, of that perspective. So we've been conducting those. I think, Steph, you've made pretty good headway with that so far. I think at one point I saw you averaging 3 a day, so I think they're going quite well. Very intense.
Yeah, I've actually nearly finished. So I gave the recruiters a 3-week sort of time slot, but they did them all. Really, most of them were last week, and I've got 5 citizens this week and 2 more hub providers, and then they're all done. So it's all been done in quite a short time frame, which. So if I excuse me if I sound a bit garbled, I've got what's called a bit of a research hangover at the moment. So.
And that explains, it's very intense in a very short time period. But it does allow us to spend a lot more time kind of on the insights and analysis and working with procurement, which is great from our perspective, but not so much from the research. So just working my way down the slide then. So planning the engagement with procurement. So a couple of things like half term. So there's been a lot of leave at the moment. So we've got our procurement support coming back in as of today. So we kick that off this afternoon with a bit of an intro with the project team and the procurement resource that we've got. The first step to that is going to be the route to market analysis. So that essentially means going out to the market, seeing what's out there, and kind of compiling all those things and working out what's fit for purpose for us potentially. And then the final point, begin analysing the insights and findings from the interviews. So that's for both the hub providers and also the citizens, but obviously that's at a bit of a later stage at the moment because we're still kind of very much in the midst of that. So that's what we've been up to. I think, Steph, I'm just going to pass on to you now for some early insights.
Okay. So as I just said, I've spoken to 8 hub providers, and I've got a couple of others. I think one from Pembrokeshire, and I spoke to one this morning from the Canolfan area. So all those provider interviews will be complete. Actually, that's Friday, the last one. So they'll be complete on Friday, and actually the citizen ones will be complete on Wednesday. So I spoke. So 10 providers, which is a couple more than I originally planned for. Gwyneth, thanks to her, she was really good in recruiting the hub providers, so they've been really useful. And I've spoken to 9 citizens and 5 remaining. I've got 1 this afternoon and then 2 Tuesday and 2 on Wednesday, and they'll be all done. And they've been located all around Wales, so rural areas, suburban and city. So that's been really interesting talking to them. So just going on to, these are very, very high level insights because I'm still in the process, obviously, of interviewing and analysing the data. Most of the hubs have got their own booking software, apart from a couple of hubs which haven't really got anything. The booking consists of a citizen going onto their website, filling out a form, and then the hub will contact them either by email or telephone, and then it's all sort of all that data is entered manually into a calendar, so that they haven't got anything at all. The majority of the hubs have got booking software, which includes, these are some of the names of them, so Nexidus, Office R&D, Ascensies, Booking Hands, and Kbot. Some of this software is subscription based, so they don't actually purchase the software, they just pay for it based on how many users or citizens use the software. One of them as well, I can't remember which one of these, was purchased by a hub but they don't use it because they can't use it because it's too complex and the usability is really bad, which I sort of thought was interesting. So yeah, so most of them have got their booking software. So I think the implications of that is, do we design a system that integrates with existing booking software, or do we take over the whole front end and back end for the hub providers? I think that's something that we need to discuss. Or do we use as a back end one of these software packages here? One of the hubs I spoke to mentioned Microsoft Office has a booking app within the Office 365 suite, and apparently that the MS booking app is used for, I think I mentioned this the other day, for the vaccine rollout or booking vaccines in Wales. So it can actually manage a large volume of users, but that's just on the back end. The other thing I think we need to be aware of is, if a hub doesn't have any booking software, are we going to be responsible for designing and building the provider sort of back end where they can manage the calendars, the bookings, adding, deleting, modifying data? So I think that's something else to be aware of. Next one. So quite a lot of the hub providers that I spoke to weren't actually aware that there was going to be a sort of central Welsh Government online booking system. They just, I don't know what they thought. I think they just thought that users would be directed to their website and they would make the booking there. So again, we'll have a central online booking system. Will users be able to use a Welsh Government plugin on the hub provider website, or do we just add a link to the Welsh Government portal on the hub provider's website and then they get navigated back to the online portal? So another thing to think of. Yeah, so in terms of sort of citizens, customers that use these hubs, most of them have sort of three methods of using a hub. So they have a membership system, they have online bookings, and they also have sort of walk-in drop-ins. So I think that's something, again, we need to be aware of, in that the providers will need some way of blocking out space in the content management system or calendar where they can still have space for their members and walk-ins as they still want to do those. So I mean, I don't know, I suppose it all depends on how popular the Welsh Government online portal is in terms of users. But I think the providers will need some way of sort of blocking out space for their members and walk-ins. So next one. So from the feedback gathered, most of the providers, when I sort of asked them a question of how they envisioned sort of online booking system to work, and they all said that it most likely would consist of a calendar, some sort of map, and then probably a floor plan. So you can see that someone's mentioned TripAdvisor. Airbnb was another web that the providers mentioned quite frequently, as in sort of, I suppose, a concept where you have user-generated content, i.e. providers adding content, and then also you've got citizens who are booking that content, or sort of, yeah, I suppose booking and reserving it. So I don't know whether anyone else had any ideas, but yeah, Airbnb and sort of TripAdvisor was mentioned. So yeah, so here we've got here the third-party software. So as I was saying before, do we integrate the Welsh government system with the existing software, or do you just have one system for the providers and the citizens? One of the hub providers I spoke to said that they sort of spent quite a bit of money on their, I think, not Senses is another one, I think it was Office R&D. They'd spent quite a lot of money on this booking system, so they didn't really want to lose that. So they've invested resources, and it links in with other software they use, like I think MailChimp, and I think MS Teams as well is another one, and also Google Calendar. So they all integrate with a lot of this software. So again, we need to think about whether or how the government portal will integrate with existing software if we go that route. And that's everything at the moment. Those are just sort of the main high-level insights that I've gathered from the interviews that I've done at the moment. So I don't know.
Yeah, thanks, Steph. I think it's also important to note that these are kind of going to go into the final report. They'll obviously be fleshed out with the citizen user needs as well, and we'll kind of get into the analysis when we've wrapped up all the interviews properly. So this will kind of be built upon, but definitely a great start for 10, I think, Steph. I think that was great. Okay, so yeah, great. Next slide. So what we're focusing on the next 2-week period, as you probably guessed, lots more interviews with citizens, like Steph has said, and primarily the bulk of next sprint that we went into today will be insights and findings from both sets of interviews from the hub providers and citizens. The procurement engagement is going to kick off as well, so that will be beginning today, so the 21st. That is the date, isn't it? Yeah, the 21st, and then that will finish around the 4th of March. That's kind of timelines that we've got at the moment. So that route to market analysis will be completed in the next sprint as well. And that will allow us to give a really good foundation to the procurement spec, and also working in tandem with the user needs and what we know is out there in the market at the moment, so we can start pulling those together in the next sprint as well. So that is what our focus is next sprint. Again, we'll come back and we'll present some more insights and findings in the next show and tell. And then if you'd like to go to the next slide, Steph. Yeah, perfect. So we're just open it up to questions now. So if you have a question, I know that people have been asking questions in the chat box already, so I will read through those. And feel free to raise your hand or put a comment in the chat box, whatever works best for you. Jem, I can see that you've asked a question around how many hubs are there, and if there's a mix of rural and urban. I think I've put a list of the hubs in the chat. And Gwyn has also answered your question as well. So let me know if you feel like that hasn't been answered, and we can come back to that. I can see, Gwyn, is that your hand up? I can't find the list on my screen at the minute. Yeah. Do you want to come off mute? Hiya.
Hello.
Oh.
2 questions, really. Thanks for the presentation. The first one, just to answer Gemma's question a bit more in depth, is we honestly don't know how many hubs are out there, because people, since the COVID, there's a few hubs springing across. So that's one of the challenges we will have as part of this whole process. So we don't know, as we say, we've got to define a hub first, or maybe we don't. We just want to capture all, like in an ideal scenario. So we don't know how many hubs have gone across Wales, but we do have a very good programme with the main hub suppliers, but that doesn't mean it's all of them. And the other question I have, maybe to Stephanie, is did you interview by any chance any Welsh language speakers to see whether there would be anything required fairly differently? Now, I'm not expecting anything, but it would be good if we can draw out some Welsh language speakers as well. And also disabled people.
Do you mean Welsh language? Let's turn off my camera.
I think you've turned
both languages, or maybe their first language as well. Often it might not apply when you're building an online booking system, but often helps to understand the needs of our demographics.
Can I just jump in there quickly, Steph, before we do that? Would you mind just stopping sharing your screen? It's really disconcerting seeing myself like 3 times over the screen. Perfect, thank you.
I've spoken to a couple of citizens that do read and speak Welsh, but they both had a preference for English as the first. Well, English was their first preference. Every citizen that I've spoken to has a preference for English.
Okay.
They speak or read Welsh.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's something that we actively try and when people come in, and if there is someone that does highlight themselves as being a Welsh speaker, we try and target those first. But to be honest, they don't come up much, and even in other projects that I've worked on, English usually tends to be the first language, even if it is a Welsh speaker. So sometimes it can be really difficult to find people like that. So if you do know of anyone, feel free to kind of send them our way. It'd be great to speak to people.
We will send some your way. We certainly know people. Thank you.
Right. Perfect. Simon, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I suppose it goes back to some of these fundamentals. I mean, I was very aware of the list that Welsh Government put out. Interesting to hear, because they're all, I think every one of those is what I would call a private sector supplier of a co-working space, perhaps some of them funded with some startup Welsh Government money, the Welsh Ice and things like that. Not quite sure the status of all of the others, but I think most of them would consider themselves to be private sector suppliers. So I think it probably would have always expected to be a bit odd that they'd have thought a Welsh Government portal. I'm not sure if it's just Welsh Government, because I would say, the Centre for Digital Public Service itself, I'd expect to be a user of these co-working hub spaces. So it's how much have we gone to the 22 local authorities, the 12 health boards, the 52 sponsored bodies, all of these public sector organisations that would be saying that they would maybe have to look at those. I'm sure you'd find your Welsh speakers, those with special needs, disabilities, anything like that. We could definitely swamp with users. And then what about those sort of requirements? Is this going to come in the citizen, the user requirement? Gov Wi-Fi, secure meeting rooms, quiet meeting rooms, stuff like that. Is all of that is that in here, or is this just the booking scope? And then I think things like the Welsh language one, comment from, I think it was made one of my Welsh Government colleagues about Eventbrite. Now, Eventbrite doesn't support Welsh language. So I can't see how Welsh Government could get behind a system that couldn't be bilingual. We've got to comply from the outset with the Welsh Language Act. So I think, there's so many of those fundamental questions here about that scope. If it is just a booking system, then why would any of these 25 companies even want Welsh Government to come in and give it a booking system?
Yeah, I think really good point, Simon. Just covering off have we gone out to all the local health boards, stuff like that. Probably, well, the answer is no. We've got an 8-week discovery. It's just Steph, unfortunately, and myself providing assistance. So the scope is quite narrow. Gwyn and her team with Lee as well have done a lot of work up front. So we've got a good idea already, and hopefully, Gwyn, you would agree as to kind of what we're expecting to come out of the discovery, because a lot of work has been done already. So we already have kind of the user needs in a position where they're relatively good, but we just wanted to do kind of validation exercise and get out there and speak to some people. Gwyn, I don't know if you want to come in there at all.
Again, it's a really good point, Simon, and we have gone and taken it to the members of Ysdau Cymru, which is made up of many members, including local authorities and the health board. So I'm hoping they will come back sometime this week with a positive response to maybe come to the show and tells. This record will be sent to our chair, and hopefully she'll send it on to the members so that they can help contribute towards this. Again, really good point, and we're trying to make headway in that.
I think it's also worth picking up, Simon, on the Eventbrite stuff. And Gwyn, I didn't realise that wasn't kind of fit for purpose for Welsh language. So something really important, kind of taking that back and considering that as part of the report as well. So thanks, Simon, for raising that. There's loads out there, and sometimes it's really difficult to get a grasp of what what each can do and what the kind of limitations are. So, and obviously that's a massive thing for us. So yeah, really appreciate you raising that.
Yeah, I think that's stage 2 anyway, isn't it? When we start to spec this up, then hopefully we will ensure that we have Welsh language as an equality language as we would expect. So yeah, if they can't do it, we can't give it to them, basically.
Yeah, quote unquote. Great. Any other questions from anyone? Simon, hopefully that answered your questions, but do let me know if it didn't. Just looking through the chat. Ed, maybe we can pick up around the social media thing after, if that's all right, unless there's anything that you want to specifically ask the group now.
No, pick it up with you afterwards, Hannah. That's fine. Thank you.
Great. And yeah, Gwyn just responded to Simon there. Okay, if there's no other questions, I will just thank you all for coming to the first show and tell. Gwyn, I'll send you the recording.
Hannah,
yeah, see your hand
just
up.
one more question, a point about so we can put you in touch with our disability groups and things like that, because I would like to think that we're capturing a wider demographic if we haven't already, but you know, that's a sideline in regards to who Stephanie is interviewed. It would be useful, and we have all those stakeholders to hand, and Gareth can help on that because he's our engagement person, so he can put you in touch with the right people.
Perfect. So I know you're off latter half of the week, aren't you, Gwyn? So maybe
it's half term, so Gareth's here.
Yeah, so let's catch up on because we've obviously got the demographics of the people that we've spoken to hand now. So we've got all of those participants. So let's work out where the gaps are. We can try and fill those. Something interesting.
Can I come back then with one question? Just
yeah, absolutely.
So let's go. Can I take it back a step? We talked about again. This project is about finding places for public servants in Wales to work as an option.
No, it's specifically about the booking tool. So not so much about the locations, it's about the booking tool itself.
So there's another project that's about finding these locations and then public servants being able to book into them.
Great. I don't know if you can come in and answer that around the other project.
So this project I see is been scaling up, Simon. So you're right, we know where our hubs are, where some hubs are, for example. There's a big piece of work to be done in the public sector domain on perhaps reciprocal arrangements. So for example, I live in the Caerphilly Borough. I possibly could go to the Caerphilly Borough offices, which is a walk away from my house, rather than going to Cardiff every day. So that's the kind of scenario. So what we want is that to scale up. So some of the local authorities are ready and some are not so ready. And obviously, as the project goes on, more hubs will be added. But yeah, so it's a scalable project. It's not going to be everything all at once. In regards to the target audience, it's anyone who uses a hub within Wales, irrespective of whether you can trip across to a public sector office or some other office, because you could be in the public sector, and if your local authority has allowed it, you could go to a private sector hub.
Yeah, but it's for the public servants. It's for the public sector. Is our staff, is our users of these. We're not trying to find a place that an SME startup can pop into. That's something that these hubs, if I take the Welsh Ice or whatever. Yeah, because I'm thinking, the ones that I would say are missing off the list from, the years I've worked around DSNR, and that's what I'm just thinking, is, there's some obvious ones there, and I don't know why they're not there when I would have thought they're offering and they're expanding their service offering. I know that one of the ones I'm thinking is moving into Newport as well. So, and there's quite a bit of space, and in the public sector, we've used them a lot as places of shared places to turn up and have meetings. It's this formalizing the fact that I can now ask any of my team to say, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to meet there next week, next Monday, or I'm going to pop down there when I haven't got any power at home because it was just, a tree's taking the power line out. Yeah,
we understand that one. Yeah, exactly. So I think perhaps Gareth will be able to get in touch with someone like the WLGA and make sure that we're on the right track in that regards. But yeah, So your thinking is right. It's just the scalable bit, because some are ready and some aren't. And to be honest, it's fairly slow in the public sector right now.
Okay, thanks.
And Simon, just to play back, the discovery for what we're working on now is the user needs for the booking tool, and then there's obviously a lot wider stuff going on as well. Cool, thanks for that. Anything else from anyone before we finish off? Just quickly look at the chat box again. Okay, perfect. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone. We'll send out the recording, so you've all got it, and Gwyn, you can share it with the contacts that haven't been able to make it. And we will speak to you all in 2 weeks, if not before. Perfect. Thanks very much, everyone. See you later.
Bye.
Cheers.